Welcome to Art Ed Radio, the podcast for art teachers. This show is produced by the Art of Education, and I'm your host, Tim Bogan. The world of contemporary art is vast. It can be difficult to understand and difficult to navigate. In this episode, No More Dead White Guys, we're going to talk about how to dive into the world of contemporary art, or at least dip your toes in to move beyond the stale curriculum of European masters that make up far too much of what art teachers often share with their students. My favorite co-host, Andrew McCormick, will join me in just a little while as we discuss art history, its role in our classrooms, and all of the ways we can move past the traditional canons of art history. The biggest names in art history come to mind in a flash. Da Vinci, Rembrandt, Van Gogh, Monet, Picasso, and they are wonderful, each and every one of them. I teach about all of those artists because they have so much to tell about art and its history. I would argue, though, that we need to move beyond those names fairly quickly because there are so many more artists out there, and those artists have so much more to offer. But what exactly do contemporary artists have to offer? Well, I'm glad you asked.
They could serve as a bridge, a connection between the historical content and the work being done now in today's society.
That's Don Masse, an elementary art teacher from San Diego, California. He gave an incredible talk during the AOE Winter Conference about the benefits of using contemporary artists in your classroom, including making connections and making the art you teach more relevant to the kids in your classroom. However, it has to be more than just a 2-minute introduction or a fly-by-night overview of what those artists are doing. A quick showing of some cool artwork isn't enough.
But as teachers, we really need to think about what goes beyond that. You need to make sure that the lesson is engaging the project and everything. So it's not just like a trick at the beginning and then you go right back into your regular routine. You need to think about just the integrity of the lesson. Make sure it still has value and excitement that's going to carry the kids through.
It's not that difficult, honestly. There are so many resources out there for teaching art history. Art 21 from PBS is a great place to start, but you can check sites like Boom, This Is Colossal, and DesignBoom.com. The Art of Ed has a plethora of articles, and just reading blogs from some of your favorite art teachers will give you so many ideas of what you can do to incorporate contemporary artists in your classroom. Now, once you have these resources and have those artists in mind, you'll begin to see the benefits that come with teaching contemporary art. Your kids are engaged, your kids are excited, your kids are curious. They're asking better questions, they're thinking about the world around them, and they're seeing how art is influencing and being influenced by popular culture, the media, and other subjects that are of interest to them. More importantly, they have a gateway that's developing that leads them into the bigger world of art history. Now, to talk about all of these ideas and a whole lot more, let's welcome on Mr. Andrew McCormick. I am here now with Andrew McCormick. Andrew, how are you?
Hey, I'm good, man. How you doing?
Very well. I've been talking today about all of the benefits to teaching about artists kind of outside the traditional canons of art history, outside of those dead white guys. And we'll kind of circle back around to all the benefits in just a second. But first, let me ask you this. Who are some of your favorite artists to teach in your classroom?
Well, I'll probably end up... I'm going to circle back first because I think some of the first ones I'll come up with are probably... dead white guys. But I feel like I definitely gravitate a lot towards pop art with a lot of my work.
Okay.
I feel like my students end up leaving my classroom with a heavy dose of Andy Warhol, Lichtenstein, even Robert Rauschenberg, who I know has kind of couched in with pop artists, but is maybe more or in different time periods as well. There's another artist I feel that comes up a lot in my classroom, Hannah Hoke, and I think I'm saying that right, although I've heard Hoke, Hawk, early Dadaist
I've always
artist.
I like her. My kids don't like her as much, but I do. I've always just said Hannah Hoke.
Okay.
So, I don't know, I guess if you want to get excessively German, then, you can.
Yeah, I think, people who are much smarter than me, I've heard them say Haka, and I was like, I'll fall for that. But then I also really like this guy named Philip Guston, and for years I walked around thinking that he was some French guy, and I called him Philippe Guston. So I was like, you mean old Phil Guston, from St. Louis, Missouri? Phil Guston? Yeah. Okay, I'm an idiot.
Yeah, that's the guy.
But then, my all-time favorite artist, and I once had a kid ask me, like, when a very deep, reflective student once out of the blue just asked me, Mr. McCormick, when did you know that you wanted to be an artist? I was like, whoa, that's a heavy question.
Yeah.
And I thought back to when I was in ninth grade, actually in Omaha, Nebraska, in your neck of the woods, I went and saw a retrospective of Jean-Michel Basquiat, and it was like a transformative moment for me. And Jean-Michel Basquiat is probably my all-time favorite artist. I don't know that I teach him like deliberately, but I show him off to my students as like one of my heroes.
Yeah, that's awesome. And well, that connection is good too, because kids always want to know what you're interested in.
Yeah.
And, that comes through in different ways. But like, if you can go in and just say, guys, I really want to pay attention. I want you to check this out because this is my all-time favorite artist. Mm-hmm. And that really kind of captures that attention. Like, that's a good anticipatory set right there.
Yeah. And Robert Rauschenberg's up there for me too. I just really like his sensibilities. It's kind of like Jean-Michel and then Robert Rauschenberg number 2.
Yeah, that's cool. Like, mine is probably Maya Lin. Like, I love just her minimalist sense of style and the monument she's done, architecture, all that stuff. And, that is a great way that I introduce her to, just say, guys, check this out. Like, I think the Vietnam Memorial is one of the great all-time artworks, and she is one of my all-time favorite artists. And that really does capture kids' attention. And then the other thing, the other 2 artists that I just kind of thought of off the top of my head that really kind of my kids get into, Kai Gao Zhang, Chinese artist who does all of the fireworks, explosions, and all that kind of stuff. Kids love seeing that. And Kehinde Wiley is a big one too that my kids just absolutely love.
Yeah, he's a great one. I've used him before. I mean, there's so much that you can talk about with notions of identity and deeper meaning. And it's also, kids love it because it's relevant, current, and masterfully done. It just looks amazing and beautiful while also bringing up some deeper issues.
Yeah. And, I think that's actually his work sort of fits into what I wanted to ask you next, actually, because question, I guess, is do you ever find that the artists that you show your kids actually take you back to some of those, quote unquote, dead white guys? Because, Wiley's work references so many different works from art history. And I guess that works out well for me because it serves as sort of a springboard into some bigger discussions and introducing some other artists from art history. So I guess let's put it this way. Can the artists that you love or that you show to your kids, can they serve as kind of a gateway to the larger world of art history?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think it's important to show kids like, listen, this person didn't just show up. Let's say a contemporary artist, they don't just show up, out of a vacuum and start making work, especially work that's like, edgy and meaningful and relevant. They're going to be that artist is going to be looking at their exemplars and their history and being critical of it and, maybe kind of imitating it and winking at it and flirting at it. So I think it definitely can work that way. I got to say though, like, I think just from, the year that we've spent getting to know each other, I think you do a really great job of really bringing in a lot of art history. I think as a middle school teacher with slightly younger students, like my art history is like a little faster, a little quicker, because I notice like I can lose kids pretty quick if I have a really dry, like anticipatory set of like, now we're going to talk about art history. And like, I can just feel the life sucking out of the room. So I try to like keep it snappy, keep it moving. So when I do reference back to historical examples, we try to do it fairly quickly. Now, I feel like I kind of grew up out of, the DBAE approach, discipline-based art ed, where you always had to have that art history. And, as I've kind of evolved a little bit more past that, what I try to do is I try to show what I would maybe consider to be a blue chip, famous artist that even people who don't like art have heard of. Monet, Picasso, Van Gogh, someone of that stature. But then I very, very quickly move on to and hear someone that's making artwork right now. I think that's the thing that's most important. You know, you call the show No More Dead White Guys. And to me, of those adjectives, the one that's the most important is dead. Like, we need to show our students that art is not just something that happened a long, long time ago and is now like nice and neat and, you know, sanctified in a museum. It's going on right now by people who are not much older than you are. So I quickly do some old, you know, historical stuff, and then I move on to people who are making artwork right now. I think that's super important.
Yeah, I do too. And I think that contemporary connection is something that really draws kids in. And so, you know, if we just go back to Kai Gao Zhang, you know, talking about good anticipatory sets, like let's watch a YouTube video of these fireworks that create a ladder that literally goes a mile up into the sky. Like, you know, that blows their mind a little bit, and then you've got him. And then same time, you can talk about how he did the opening ceremonies for the 2008 Olympics in Beijing. And all of a sudden, you know, all of these connections of what's going on right here really, really come to life for kids. But I want to dig in a little bit deeper here. You know, just talking about art history, where it fits within your lessons. Like, what does specifically it look like in your classroom? Like, is it planned with lessons or with certain projects? Do you just share stuff with kids as it comes up in discussion? Mm-hmm. Do you ever just do art history for art history's sake? Like, what works for you?
Well, what definitely doesn't work for me was the last one you said, which was art history for art history's sake. I think that's a surefire way to have kids like really check out and snooze on you. Because, I mean, I remember as a high school student, that's what we did was, you know, studio. And guess what? As a treat, guys, the last 2 weeks of the semester, you don't get to make any artwork and you get to watch 2 weeks worth of videos about art history.
That's terrible.
It's terrible because it's not connected to anything you're doing because you're done making artwork now. So, you know, I definitely don't do that. That's a really bad idea for me. I try with every project to have a little, you know, a little show at the beginning, a little PowerPoint, and here's some people we're going to look at. One of the things that I've actually done, and my talk at NAEA is actually was about this concept of letting your students kind of steer some of this stuff. I'll show my students a much shorter version of my examples and models and people that I think relate to it. Because I realized a couple years ago, one of the things I think I'm really good at with in art teaching and that I enjoy is making these really grand presentations, right? Like, I'm going to show them all these connections and all these artists and they're going to love it. And it's 70 slides long. No kid wants to watch a 70-point slideshow, despite how witty and relevant and great connections you think you're making. Yes. So now it's like I'm 15, 15 or under is kind of my rule of thumb. And what I do a lot lately is I actually then want my students to show me what they think is cool in sort of a given theme or topic or idea. Like, I want to know what they're looking at. And I think that that's one of my big beefs with dead white European guys from a long time ago. A lot of kids don't see that artwork as having sort of some relevance or resonating with what their life is like right now. So when they look at what's out there right now, whether maybe it's even not a quote unquote fine artist, maybe it's even some visual culture stuff. So character designers at a video game company or costume or set designers for Hollywood, like those are things that might be more resonating with students that they want to show me as what they think is cool. And I've really enjoyed sort of loosening it up. Now, anyone who's listened to this podcast knows that we're both big fans of not either or, but like having it both ways, right? So I still want to show my kids that historical background and underpinnings to things, but then yet also let them show me some cool stuff that's a little more out there, a little more current, a little more relevant.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to do things. And I'm going to share with you kind of something that I do, just a good example of what I do with art history and just kind of get your thoughts if that's cool. So one thing that I do in my classroom it relates to art history, but it's a lot of contemporary art. It's called Social Issues Silhouettes, and just came up with this a couple years ago. But we look at and talk about the work of Kara Walker for a couple days.
Oh, right on.
I don't know if you're familiar
Yep.
with her,
Yep.
but her work is dark, and there's some like really difficult issues that it brings up, but it's also really engaging for my kids. We have really, really meaningful discussions. Like we'll spend a day talking about social issues or current events or just anything else that's kind of affecting our kids' lives. And then after that, they're going to create their own silhouettes that kind of address some of these issues. And I like that because working in silhouettes is sort of a new kind of drawing challenge. Like it forces them to think a little bit differently when you can't have detail, like
Right.
depth is done a little bit differently. You just have to have a lot of clarity in your images. And I love that project. I love having the contemporary artists serve as the catalyst for all of that. And it provides some engagement, some curiosity, and some questioning that I don't necessarily always see from my kids. Like, I guess what are your thoughts on doing things like that?
Well, I think that's fantastic. I mean, I think this is the thing I've been grappling a lot with just other teachers or thinking about my own practice is I think all people, whether we think of artists or students or young artists, want to make work that is meaningful. They want to create meaning through artwork. So showing students and artists that might be a little edgy or controversial is really fantastic and great. And it's a great way to get them going, And I think sometimes we as teachers, the school districts that we work in, everyone works in, sometimes we're a little cowed to be safe and sanitized, and we think, well, this talks about identity or it talks about race or it talks about discrimination or stereotypes. And that's kind of a heavy topic. Your kids can handle it, trust me, because they are talking and dealing with these things out there. Why not make those issues be applicable and something that they can work with in the art room? I think it's a win-win.
Yeah, I would agree. And I guess, I think that covers a lot of what I wanted to get to with you. But if we can just kind of wrap this all up in, I don't know, one nice little package here. We've talked about levels of engagement and dealing with meaningful issues and all that. But if you can just wrap it up in like a sentence or two, what to you are the biggest benefits with teaching contemporary artists or teaching the artists that you love?
Well, if I had to give, I'm already rambling. See, I'm like prefacing and couching this. One word, it's relevance, right? I mean, letting students look at contemporary artwork made by people who look and have a background like they do, right? Like, so if you have students, minority students, female students, I think it's really important that they see in the art world heroes of theirs that look and have a world like theirs, and if all we do is bring in the blue chip, art history book, dead white European guys, we're leaving so much off the table and we're missing out so many opportunities to show students that art is a vibrant and amazing world and anyone and everyone gets into it.
Exactly. That is a beautiful way to wrap that up, and I think we're gonna close up shop right there.
It wasn't very short though. You should know me well enough by now. If you say make it short, it's going to ramble on a little bit.
Very true. We still appreciate it though. It's still very well said. So, all right. Thank you very much, Andrew. It's been good talking to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Tim. We'll see you later.
Now, if this discussion between Andrew and I captured your attention, Integrating Art History is the class for you. If you're in need of grad credits or PD hours and you want to learn about how to revamp your curriculum to bring in more art history, how to get more out of the art history you already do, and learn a plethora of new ideas, Integrating Art History is the place to be. The class is worth 2 credits, runs 4 weeks, and as with all of our classes, it starts on the 1st of each month. You can learn more by going to theartofed.com and clicking on the Courses tab. Now, as we close the show, I want to bring Don Masse on one last time.
We need to keep ourselves as teachers engaged and sharp. We need to think about not only what has happened in the past, but we need to have a strong clue as to what's going on in today's society too. We need to be advocates and aware of change that's happening in the art world. This is what the kids are interested in. And we need to make sure that, we stay up on that so that really we are lifelong learners of change. And that change is caused by artists and critical and creative thinkers.
Don says it all right there. It's about us reacting to and learning from the world around us and the art that's being made within it. It's not that we can't or shouldn't teach those masters that I mentioned. Van Gogh, Rembrandt, Picasso, Da Vinci, and Monet are all valuable parts of art history, and I think they have a place in every classroom. But there is so much more out there. Find those resources, discover those artists, share them with your students. You'll have kids that are more engaged, more curious, asking better questions, and thinking more about the world in which they live. When you bring in relevant, contemporary, thought-provoking artists and resources, you will have, if I can put it simply, a classroom that encourages active learning and growth. Okay, to ignore these artists that can do so much for your students is to do your students a disservice. Don't just teach the dead white guys. You can do better than that. You can be better than that. Art Ed Radio is developed, produced, and supported by The Art of Education, with audio engineering by Michael Crocker. We appreciate all of you that have subscribed to the show, and we appreciate all the comments we received on iTunes, because we're always looking to get better. Hit up theartofed.com and click on the podcast link, where you can find this and every episode, including a ton of resources that can come back to your classroom immediately. New episodes are released every Tuesday, so look for us then.